Welcome to the Curious Fox podcast. This podcast is for those who challenge the status quo in love, sex, and relationships. My name is Effie Blue.
And I'm Jacqueline Misla. And we're taking a pause from our usual programming to join the country and the world in exclaiming that Black lives not only matter, the Black community deserves to feel safe, valued, and free from the violence and systemic barriers that have held them back for centuries. As women of color, social justice advocates, and human beings, we want to ensure that we are leveraging our platform to challenge the status quo, which has been designed and maintained in order to limit the possibility and potential for so many people.
Here at Curious Fox, our mission is to challenge the status quo and change the noise. Although our work is around challenging the status quo is in love, sex, and relationships, we approach the way we live and exist in the world with the same attitude. The status quo is neither good nor bad by definition, but it's stagnant by design. It's about maintaining what is at all costs, even if that cost is the lives of millions of Black and brown folks who didn't choose to be in this country in the first place. Right now, the status quo is oppression and it's injustice. It's brutality and violence towards Black and brown folks in the country, as well as around the world. Accepting what is without question makes us complicit in what's happening right now. Inaction is aggression. Passivity is not the same as peace. This is why we make it our duty to challenge the status quo. When we talk about changing the noise, we are referring to the messages, narratives, beliefs, dogma, stigma, and oppression that surrounds us in the form of mainstream media, hyper-targeted social feeds, what's considered to be cultural norms or tradition, conversations within our all too often homogenous bubbles, and more. The noise is there, it's loud, and it's persistent, and it's insidious. Almost like a white noise machine, our consciousness may not be aware, but these pervasive messages are affecting the way we live, think, and connect. It's affecting what we see and what we don't see. It's affecting what we choose to ignore. It takes active and conscious work to change the noise around you. It's about searching for and following folks that are not just suggested by your algorithms. It's about seeking and listening to folks that are different from you with an open mind, an open heart, and a genuine curiosity. It's about letting go of what's comfortable to make room for what challenges you.
Having said all this, we can do better. Despite our own diverse backgrounds and experiences, I'm a Hispanic queer woman who was raised amongst the diverse backdrop of the Lower East Side in New York City. I'm a social worker, a trained community organizer, and a change strategist. I'm the parent of a mixed race child and have been having conversations with my daughter for years around what it means to be a person of color in the United States.
And I'm an immigrant. I grew up in a multicultural environment. I'm multilingual. I lived all around the world for a decade, including places like South Africa, where the apartheid only ended in 1994. I soaked in other cultures for most of my life. I know too well, through first-hand experience, what's going on in the world.
And despite that, despite our own experiences as people of color, despite the fact that diversity and representation are core values of ours, we also fell short. 2 weeks before the most recent protests, we noticed that we had taken our eye off the ball. For years, we've been collaborating with educators and speakers of color to share their expertise and their voice with the Curious Fox community. It's an intentional part of our process to seek out diversity and create space for representation. And yet, despite this effort, we found our recent programming to be whitewashed. We've had a string of brilliant and talented educators for the last 6 weeks, all of which happen to be white. And as we are scheduling our events, we continue to name this trend, and we're intentionally reaching out to others in our network to have diverse representation and voice. And we realized that we had not cultivated a large enough network to create the type of diversity that we want to see in our programming. We're saying this both to apologize and also to note how easy it is to lose sight, even for people of color, even for those who have been oppressed, and even for those who make it their mission. As change makers, we understand that there needs to be multiple strategies and actions in order to disrupt the systems that oppress. We are continuing to do our work to disrupt the existing narratives by focusing on changing the noise, sharing our platform, amplifying diverse voices, and aligning actions and resources with our values.
We are highlighting educators, facilitators, speakers, and thought leaders of color in our field through our social media channels. We urge you to follow them. We'll be proactively inviting folks to be a part of our programming and prioritize Black and brown voices. We've had aspirations to have Spanish programming for a while now, and we're now reaching out to educators and facilitators as well.
We've been working over the past few weeks to broaden our network and have been introduced to so many extraordinary Black educators and speakers. We not only want to work with them, but seek counsel on how we can do better.
And if you have a diverse background and perspective, and if you are doing work that challenges the status quo in love, sex, and relationships, we want to work with you. Let's change the noise together. Until next time, stand with one another, be safe, and stay curious, friends.